Hi class, so welcome back. So again, this is Contemporary World, and right now we are going to have another new lesson, and that is trade and consumption, their role in the global economic flows. Again, my name is Miss Celine, and we are going to discuss this next topic. Alright, so before we start, let's go to the objectives one by one. First, explain how trading is an essential part of the global economic flows. Second, examine the economic impact of the flow of oil. Third is determine the effects of the Great Recession in 2008 to the global economy. And lastly is explain how consumerism is closely related with the global economic flow. Now let's go to it one by one. So now let's discuss first the concept of flow. When we say flow, it is the production and consumption of what? So these are the three. So first is the global trade. How are the global, or how does the world trade with their goods to each country? So for example, like the United States, how do they trade their goods to, like for example, China? Okay, so yes, they do trade. Okay, even before anything else, they actually do trade. Okay, so that's the first one. The second is production networks. So what are the networks that actually produce those goods? So what are the different, so for example, is that a company? What kind of company is that? What are their products and their services that they are providing? And lastly is the commodity flows. So what is commodity? When we say commodity, these are the things that we use every day. Like for example, like our toothbrush, our shampoo, the different goods that we use every day and how they actually flow in the global market. How do they actually move in the economic, in an economic sense in the world? Okay, so that is what flow mean. Okay, so it's like a flow of water. All right, so it actually how it goes. Does it go smoothly? Does it go up and down? And many more. So that's what flows is all about. When we say global trade, okay, so I've already mentioned this a while ago. This is the surplus and deficit. So this is how much is surplus or how much is being provided. Is it enough? Is it too many? And when we say deficit, is it means that how low is it, or meaning to say how kulang or how not enough is the goods are being provided. So when we say global trade, two concepts actually is very important in here. The surplus, how many, and deficit, how short are we. So that's the global trade is all about. So there we have different kinds of terms in here that we need to understand. First is the supply chains. When we say supply chains, these are raw materials to finished products. So this supply chains, this is the chain. Okay, so this is like a chain of how raw materials are being made of to become a very finished product. So like for example in iPhone, how are the different parts in iPhone are being held together, developed, and then was being finished. I mean the iPhone itself. So that is the supply chain. How is the supply being processed? Next is the international production networks. So this is the MNCs and also the producers. So multinational companies, I've already mentioned this in our previous topic. So international production networks. So these are the different networks who actually give these services, who makes the people get that kind of goods that we have right now. How are we able to get that? So this is through the multinational companies that I've already discussed before. So they are the ones, they are the means, they are the medium, how these products actually arrive to us. So that is the international production networks. Next is the commodity chains. So when we say commodity chains, these are like what I've mentioned a while ago. Commodity are our needs. These are the products that we actually buy. All right. So these products are being sold to us by the use of different kinds of sellers. Okay, so MNCs are the producers, and then the commodity chains in here, we are talking about who actually sells it. Is a salesman required to sell it? Is Shopee or Lazada or many more are being the one or is being the medium to actually sell those products. Next is the global value chains, production and consumption, the post-con. All right, so the global value chains, these are now talks about the product in itself, on how is the product, its production is equal or is equivalent to its consumption. Are all of the products are consumable, meaning to say if you were able to make 100 iPhones right now, are all people or a lot of people will actually consume those iPhones, or when we say consume, buy those iPhones into zero. I mean, no more production. I mean, no more products will be sold. All right, so that's what global value chains is. It is the value of the product that you have right now, and we are talking about that on the post-con, because when we say post-con, it is after. So how does the product actually sells? How does the product actually has value to the global market? All right, so let's talk about war trade. So I've already gave you a glimpse a while ago what trading is like for example, the America, United States, and China. So let's talk more about it. So in US has a trade deficit of $566 billion as of 2017. So it means to say that their trading has a deficit. So it's too short, it's too low, all right? So that's a $566 billion. While China has a trade surplus, meaning to say sobra or too much, of $422.5 billion as of 2017. So there are a lot of, actually that's actually the reason why US is the most, actually not all countries agree with this, but they believe that US is the number one country. So and others don't believe that. So actually the basis for that is their trading. How do they perform in the market? How do they actually exhibit their production and consumption in the market, and how things are being sold, and how those products are being consumed by the consumer. So during the war, these two countries, these huge and gigantic countries, are the ones who are actually very active in trading. Well, so in 2017, those numbers actually showed how the surplus and also their deficit showed their trading during 2017. But back before, it's so much higher, and it's so much evident how they actually perform. But these two, that's the reason why their deficit is huge. It's in dollars, and also the surplus is huge. It means they're actually trading not just in small time. Okay, so it's huge because it's $500 billion and $400 billion. So the trading is very evident on how the surplus and surplus and deficit is being showed. Okay, so I've included this one. This is according to Cross 2008. Points to ponder: global commodities ranging from oil to base materials to grains are moving higher as billions of people in China and around the world get wealthier and are consuming more as they produce products for themselves. So according to Cross 2008, people are actually getting wealthier. So they were able to provide for themselves, buy for themselves, and because of that, the trading actually increases, and the commodities are now moving higher than expected. So that includes from the oil and also down to the very grain, like for example, the grain of rice. So the very reason why our things that we are buying right now are now getting expensive is because, according to Cross, is that because we were able to achieve it and to buy it. We have already the capability to buy it. So that's actually what Cross is talking about. It adds, the world is coming alive and the lights are coming on across Asia, and we need to deal with the tremendous demand for resources. So according to Cross as well, because of the people are getting wealthier, the world is coming alive because the global economy is now on a cycle and everything is now moving. So I can still remember in the news just recently, after the pandemic, after President Bongbong Marcos lifted the pandemic here in the Philippines, the news anchor, if I'm not mistaken, it's on GMA or in ABS-CBN, they said that the government or the economic experts wanted to stop the work from home setting, and they wanted people to get out of their houses so the economic now can go back to its cycle and to actually help it to rise. Okay, so it means to say that we need to go out, so we need to go out so we can buy goods from outside. We will get services from transportation, from the food outside. So as long as the money is turning, as long as the money is cycling, the economy of our country is growing as well. That's actually the same what Cross 2008 was saying, is that the more that you were able to buy commodities outside, the more capable that you are, the more the economic growth is. And because of that, it means to say that the cycle of money is actually continuous, and it shows that people are getting wealthier, and when people get wealthier and they were able to buy more goods, the economic also grows. All right, so let's talk about flow of oil. And its economic impact. As nations get industrialized, oil demand increases. These demands lead to higher prices as it becomes more difficult to obtain. All right, so I can still remember there's a war now between Russia and Ukraine. I really don't know where they are right now, I mean what their status is, but their war actually has a huge impact on our oil. And because of that, prices are rising. All right, so prices are rising. All right, so I have to make this clear. So way back before, in Cross in 2008, he viewed that economy back then was flowing in that direction because people are getting wealthier. But now, since the oil is it's rising, and it's because of a war. So war actually has its casualties, not just people, but also other goods, okay? So because of that, other goods are increasing in demand while others are not. So because of the war, the goods for war is being purchased more than the goods that are necessity, like for example food, housing, and many more, and different technology that can be used every day, or any other expensive stuff that are not necessary. Okay, because of that, it shifted. Okay, so the goal or the goal of the purchasing is now on the war, and because this is a war, the oil supply are now being cut between the two nations, between Russia and also Ukraine. So because of that war that we are experiencing right now, the war is actually not we are not experiencing, but them. All right, because of that war, all right, everyone in the world actually experiencing a deficit in oil supply, and because of that cut, and because of that, a lot actually suffers. Like for example, us here in the Philippines, because of that cut, the oil actually is now being expensive, and in all honesty, the salary is not rising and increasing. So it makes us more poor in that case. So again, this one is different. Cross approach and his view a while ago that I've mentioned was way back in 2008. But right now, the war actually has a very huge impact, not just only in their countries, but also to other countries and to the third world nations just like us. So we are the ones who suffer more. So oil wealth, it makes a nation richer. OPEC has $282 billion in 2012, and in Saudi Arabia alone earned $312 billion in 2012. So as you can see, actually a country who has more oil actually is the richer, or they are the ones who actually is the richest. Okay, so that's why in Saudi Arabia and also in the ones in the southeast, I'm not sure what the specific countries, but those who actually lives in Arabs and who actually provides more oil, actually they are the richest because they are the ones who actually is the source and the source of for the whole world. So the more oil that they provide, the more richer they became. So that's why OPEC, $982 billion alone, just in 2012. That's actually their what they earn, and same in Saudi Arabia. That's $312 billion. All right, so we have to talk about race to bottom. All right, so we have this concept, just like a pyramid. That's a lot, okay, but let me just go to this slide first. So race to bottom, a downward spiral of competitiveness among different countries. Okay, let me just read on the second point first. These countries must undercut the competition by having lower wages, poorer working conditions, longer working hours, ever escalating pressures and demands. All right, so in here, so when we say race to bottom, it's just like a tatsulok. That's what I've mentioned a while ago. So for my foreign students, tatsulok is a triangle. Okay, so those who are rich are on the top, and those who are poor are on the bottom. So we have this race to bottom concept, wherein competition actually doesn't go up, just like what is very common, but it goes down. So in here, the more poorer the condition of an employee or someone or a country, it's actually it actually it makes sense more. All right, because the poorer becomes more poorer and the richer becomes richer. All right, so that's why it's called race to bottom. It's actually racing down who will be able to make someone more poorer. That's actually evil, right? I think it's really evil. But that's actually this point of it, race to bottom. All right, so if we have race to bottom, which sounds very disastrous and evil, we have industrial upgrading. Okay, industrial upgrading is the movement of nation states, firms, and even workers from low value to relatively high value production. So in here, industrial upgrading is the idea that workers from low value are now being moved to high value productions. So this is with the use of technology, wherein their production can actually increase. So meaning to say, if an employee used to work hand by hand and one production of an item per day, or how many certain numbers, with the use of technology, they were actually able to double it. And because of that, production rises. And that's what we call industrial upgrading. So we have the term outsourcing. When we say outsourcing, let me read first the points. The transfer of activities once performed by an entity to a business in exchange for money. We have the term offshore outsourcing, sending work to companies in other countries, for example, here in the Philippines, call centers. All right, so we have the term outsourcing. When we say outsourcing, is that we get services from other countries and then to provide services. I mean, we actually get employees from other countries, from low-income countries, and then those services are for the high-income countries. Like for example, the call centers. So call centers are that's why it's called BPO. It's business process outsourcing. That's why it's called business process outsourcing. Is that because the businesses actually makes use of other people or other countries' services to provide their own countrymen services that are needed. So why are they doing this? They are actually doing this because those countries, like for example here in the Philippines is actually one of the countries who are good in English, and that's why a lot of call centers are actually utilizing Philippines, is because of the exchange of money, that if they hire call center agents from their own country, that will be expensive. But if they hire call center agents here in our country, the peso dollar exchange is actually cheaper. So like I usually say this, 1 peso is equivalent to $55. I mean, $1, baliktad. $1 is equivalent to 55 pesos. So their $1 actually can give salary to a number of employees here in the Philippines. And it's not just that low, okay? It's not a very low salary. It's actually a good salary. That's why a lot of call center agents, a lot of employees here in our country are actually choosing to be call center agents because of the salary. It's actually competitive. Actually, call center agents are not that poor, in all honesty. Their salary are actually sometimes higher than the typical salary of a professional here in our country. And because of that, the economic change are growing. Because of that, the economy of both countries are also increasing, which is good. Now, let's talk about the Great Recession. A recession is a decline or stagnation in economic growth, which have caused millions of people to lose their life savings, jobs, and also homes. So when we say recession, this is the time wherein it means a lot of production and where, in simple terms, there is a stoppage or there is a stop in the economic growth of a country where people can no longer provide for themselves and they have to use their savings. This actually happened before. So this was called the Great Recession. In America, it's called the Great Depression because a lot of people actually are poor. So that is the Great Recession. And obviously, it impacts the economy as well. All right, so Great Recession is actually due to financial crisis. So let's talk about its causes. So first, the growing inequality in the US brought about by unionized manufacturing jobs, the offshoring of various types of labor. First, of course, is because of manpower. Because of the US has brought the inequality, that's why their discrimination is now being addressed in the United States. Okay, and because of that, because of discrimination, there's a lot of unions that are, a lot of people are now joining unions to go against a specific company, and that's one factor. The manpower, if there's discrimination and many more, it actually can cause a financial crisis, not just in the company, but also in the long run in the economy of the country. I mean, not just one company. Large numbers of homeowners were unable to make their monthly payments and banks foreclosed them. All right, so the next one is homeowners are the ones who actually lives in the residential areas or the simple people who are just working to provide for their own are no longer can't provide. I mean, they can't provide anymore for themselves, and everything is actually high. So that's why they can no longer pay for their debt, and because of that, the economy also turns down. Okay, because of that. And next is the deregulation throughout the financial industry. So the financial industry is actually a huge part in this. Actually, obviously, we are actually talking about the financial industry since the beginning, but in here the regulation. Okay, we have different regulation and how to actually cycle the money by using the supply and demand. But in here, because of the supply and demand that we have right now, it actually also affects the financial industry or the financial situation of the country. All right, so let's talk about sovereign wealth funds. So what is sovereign wealth funds? These are funds controlled by nation states, which often invest in other countries. So when we say sovereign wealth funds, these are the money of the people that are being invested in another country in exchange of an interest that will increase their economic status, and also because of interest, hopefully in stock exchange as well, it will help the economic growth. So when we say sovereign wealth funds, these are the funds that are being invested to other countries. All right, let's talk about consumption and its implication in the global economy. All right, so when we say consumption, this is wherein a buyer or a consumer actually deals or actually getting it and buying it. All right, so let's go to it one by one. So consumers getting bigger. So when we say consumers are getting bigger, they were able now to buy the necessary things that they wanted, also the essentials and non-essentials that they wanted in their life. They are getting bigger, so it means that they are getting richer. And because of that, they were able to buy more products. Consumption process, it's actually made easier. Credit cards or purchase online. So the use of our credit cards, the use of debit cards, wherein you're just gonna swipe your ATM and then you can actually pay easily, that actually helps our economy. And also the purchase online, Shopee, Lazada, Grab, I guess. So the easier the transaction, the easier that you can pay, the better, because you were able to mobilize, yes, to mobilize the flow of money. So, and because of that, the economy also rises. Next is consumption sites. So like the shopping malls, fast food restaurants, this kinds of consumption, or this kind of sites, or different areas where you can buy food, where you can travel, and many more. This actually helps the economy as well. And because of that, actually the main goal, the main gist of what I'm actually trying to say is that we are the consumers, and we are the ones who actually make the economic growth. It actually depends on us, but also we depend on the economy, so it actually plays hand in hand. All right, so we have two kinds of consumers. So we have the hyper consumption and the hyper debt. So let's go first the hyper consumption. Hyper consumption are the people who are buying more than one can afford. So these are people who keeps on buying things that they can afford. All right. All right. So these are the ones who actually buys a lot of things. All right. Sometimes they need it, sometimes they don't. All right. So let's go to hyper debt. Hyper debt are borrowing more than one will be able to pay back. All right. So if in hyper consumption you keep on buying even though you don't need it, or you do need it. In hyper debt is you keep on borrowing even though you know that you can't pay it. So that are the two kinds of consumers, and these two consumers actually impacts our economy as well. All right, so that's it. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please just let me know and I'll try to answer it. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in our next video. Thank you. See you then. Bye.